Hi, so this is a very quick primer for all those of you that are not really so knowledgeable about 3ds Max. I'm using 3ds Max 2014 for this one. When you open 3ds Max, you'll see you might be a bit daunted by what it looks like if you're a very early user. When it opens, you can always remember you can get help in the Autodesk Max help and the Autodesk Max, the 3ds Max learning channel, and it tutorials everything. So if you go to the help button, if you're really stuck, go here. This is the reason why I'm not going to do too much here, because this Udemy lesson presumes that you have prior knowledge of 3D Studio Max or other 3D applications, and if you're an absolute beginner, you can use these tutorials. But this is a quick extra video here that I'm giving you to show you basically your way around 3D Studio Max. Right, okay, let's start. So the main menu, so when you open up, you've got different areas, okay? The main menu bar is this, so it's a menu, yeah? And we've got all the different options we can carry out here. As I showed you, there's help, there's Max script, customize, render. So these are different functions you can look at. Also, there's a top left button here that's the symbol of the latest 3D Studio Max version. If you open this up, this has got some very important things on it. It's got save, save as. So save scene, you know, we can type in when we save it, when we press save, we type in blah blah blah, and then that saves the file as blah blah blah. Then as we proceed, another really important thing to do is to, rather than save, save as, and each time you save as, press the plus button, because this way it makes a replica. So now I've pressed the plus button, it's got blah 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 1 plus. So it keeps your old copies, which is a really good idea. If you make a mistake, you can go back to your previous saved version. Okay, so that's the menu, the main menu bar, and the most important thing for you is this green button here. The main toolbar is also important. This has got all the toolbar icon graphics. We're going to go into that in a second, but there's about 3 or 4 important things there to get you straight into Max. Okay, the command panel is here. This is a famous 3D Studio Max interface here, which is the command panel. Okay, so the best thing here is the geometry. So you go into the geometry and create different shapes immediately. Viewports, of course, are these things. You left click or right click, and that will activate the particular viewpoint. So for example, bottom left, and it makes it gold around, okay? And then we've got the lower interface bar controls here, which has the timeline and the animation. We don't have to worry about this too much here. In the bottom right, though, it's quite important. It's got different buttons to control your viewports, such as orbits, you know, zoom extents, but we'll look at that when we create something because it's easier. That's my motto, learning by doing. So 3D Studio Max is just a way that it integrates into the computer to use 3D, and other 3D softwares do the same thing, such as Maya, Blender, etc., etc. Depending on your viewpoint or your tastes, one program could be better than the others, or depending on what you want to create, okay? But all in all, they all make 3D graphics, okay? And so 3D graphic software does different things, okay? So it can be used for modeling, to make models. It can be used to edit the materials of the models. It can use to edit the lighting in the scene. Excuse me, I shouldn't really be yawning. You can edit the cameras, you can create cameras, you can make animation, and you can render. Now rendering, for those that you don't know, makes the image look good. What we see in the viewports is not the final image. Rendering works out what the final image would be, okay? Unless you're making real-time work, then what you see is what you get, and that's increasingly becoming more and more sophisticated and looking as good as pre-rendering here. Okay, and rendering, as you can see, is up here on the tool menu. Okay, so what we're going to do now is going to first look at the units. So on the toolbar, you go to Customize Unit Setup, and if you want to set up units, it's all here. You can centimeters, kilometers, etc., etc., and this is tied to the grid. So if you make kilometers, this will be a measurement of grid, but don't worry about the material, the measurement, the units set up too much at the moment. Okay. The viewpoint layout here, we can change the layouts using different systems, but the easiest way for you at the moment to do it is you can increase and decrease the different viewports by dragging the bars. So when we're in the viewport, it's select arrow. When we drag over it, if you can see there, it changes to an up and down option. So left click and drag, left click and drag, and then the middle one's across here. So if you want to change your viewpoints, for example, if you want this one to be bigger, then you can do it like that. So it's easy, yeah, absolutely easy. Basically, viewports again. Another important thing is to this viewport is left. Okay, let's start by drawing something, because this will make it easier for you. So let's draw a box. So to make a box, we go to this command panel, go to geometry, which is here, box, take it to any of your viewports, left click, keep left click down, draw a square in the left viewports, take off left click, then it's going to do the breadth of the box, and then move it up and down and click when you've finished. Okay, and I mentioned a little about these things, so let's look at these now. So that's maximize, minimize the particular viewport. Orbit around the object. This gives you the option to walk through the object, which usually this happens is too quickly. So what you do is you do the brackets, left bracket, tap it a few times, and it'll slow it down. If it's too slow, do right brackets. Okay, so that's that. Okay, and this is field of view, don't worry about that too much. Zoom extents is a good tool because it zooms to all extents. This zooms all, this zooms, okay. So that's the controls down there, yeah. But I wouldn't worry too much about that because we've got some more manual controls. We can zoom, pan, and arc, and rotate. Okay, so firstly, I'm going to zoom with my mouse. So remember we made this, maximize this. So my mouse, you should have a middle wheel. If not, get a mouse with a middle wheel, and to zoom in, you scroll forward on the mouse wheel and backwards on the mouse wheel, okay? So that's zoom. And again, you can zoom here on this icon here. It's easy, yeah? Okay, so the next one is pan. So pan, again, you hold down the middle mouse button, keep it held down, and then drag left, right, yeah? So that's going to pan your view. Easy, yeah? Arc, again, arc, the best way to do it is using this, orbit sub-object, yeah? Click here, left click, and hold down left click, and you drag it around the object, yeah? Okay, good. And what I'm going to do now is to quickly tell you about primitives, and I'll take it back to this grid with nothing on it, the main grid. And just another quick tip, we can change the views here. So we can that's at the moment left. We can change the back, front, top, bottom on each of these viewports, yeah? Right, so these are called primitives in the command panel. Box, sphere, cylinder, torus, teapot, etc., etc. Primitives are made in 3D programs, so you can immediately have geometry. If you didn't have primitives, you'd have to make things from scratch. For example, a box. It would be stupid to reinvent the wheel every time to make the box, yeah? So what we do is choose a primitive and left click, drag, take off left click, take it up to the height you want, left click, finish the action. So now we've got a box. But the box, so we've got geometry. Now we go to the modify panel. This is this sort of tube, bendy tube, blue shape. Click on that. It gives you the name, so you can change the name to box good, whatever you want. And then you can adjust the length, the height, the width, the height, depending on what units you've set up. Yeah. You can also increase the length segments and the width segments. Okay. To make your viewport have a wireframe, if your viewport just looks like this, and you select your object, there's nothing there, you can press F4, and then it will give you edged faces. So this shows you the intersections in your model. So we choose length segments, width segments, height segments. And you might be wondering at this stage, why are we making different segments when all we can do in this primitive is, there's not anything else we can do in this primitive. We can add modifiers on top of it. Okay, that's for another time. So we can add a modifier like blend. But we cannot go into the model. You've probably seen people editing little squares. And this is where we convert this polygon to an editable poly. Yeah. And the editable poly, we've converted it, and now we can select the vertices, which are these little ones, the points, the edges, these lines, the borders. Well, borders is when you have an open space like this, and you it selects the open hole. But I'll take that back by pressing Ctrl and Z, undo, and then polygon selects the polygon. It's either the shapes in the geometry made up of 4 lines, or even 3, or sometimes more. But usually it's best practice when making models to have 4-sided polygons, or 3 as well, but 4 quad polygons are the best, which is 4-sided. Okay, and then we can select the element. So now we've made this into the editable poly, we can do certain things to it. I'll be showing this to you in the later tutorial when we make the piece of art. But for example, we can select a polygon and we can extrude it, which is one of the most common tools. So we can extrude it. This option list comes up here, and we can do things like that. We can move around. We can select a vertex, move it like this. Yeah. We can get an edge. We can move it like this. Okay, and I've probably gone too far, because with you, draw another box. So box primitive, remember right click, convert to poly. We can bring up the materials here. Okay, and we can click on a material we like. Don't worry too much about materials, I'll be going on this later, and we can left click, drag on the material, makes it a nice grey colour. Just quickly looking at the controls, select and move, we can move the shape anywhere we want. If we left click and drag the shape, or we drag it inside this yellow box, we can move it anywhere we want on the screen. Yeah, we can move it from the top or the left, etc., etc. We can also restrict it to the axes. In geometry at school, you've probably done Cartesian coordinates. So we have Y, Z, and X. This is how computer graphics is worked out. The illusion of computer graphics, yeah. So if we drag normally inside this yellow box, it's a free move. If we move over the Y-axis, it restricts it on the Y. The Z restricts it on the Z. And that on the X, like so. So that's a way to move objects, restricting them on the plane, or you can move them with the yellow box. Another tool I should show you quickly is the rotate tool. Again, up here on the main menu toolbar, got the rotate there, like that, Control Z, let's take it back so it's original, and then you can do it restricted on the axes as well, if we roll over this to this trackball like that. Okay, and then the last one I'm going to show you here is scale. Select scale, it comes up with a triangle. You can scale it uniformly if you click inside here or outside this. If you click on one of the restraints, it will scale it on the restraint. Yeah. Okay, good. So that's quickly the main controls. We have other options. We can do things like lighting and cameras. We can create cameras. I'll just quickly show you how to do that. So we go to the command panel and select camera, and we can view from the camera. Okay, we can orbit the camera around, and we can also make lights, and quickly we make lights up here. Yeah. So just get rid of that message, and then we can make lights. Okay. So you've got a light here. Somewhere in the perspective, where is the light? The light is in the box. I'm going to move the light out of the box, and then like so, you can see I've made a light. So that's a very, very quick primer on 3D Studio Max for this Udemy course. As I say, if you want to learn more, go to the help channel, go down the tutorials. You can also go on YouTube. There's many things on YouTube as well. Okay, so that's the primer for 3D Studio Max. Some of you might be using Blender and looking at using the same concepts that I'm using here in Blender, but that's fine. Okay, so let's continue with getting down to making the piece of artwork now. Okay, see you in the next part. Bye.